Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling like you lost a war you never even wanted to fight? You said everything you thought you needed to say. You defended yourself. You made your points. You stood your ground. And yet, somehow, you still felt smaller, as if every word you spoke carved away a little more of your own strength. Maybe you've been surrounded by people who don't listen, people who interrupt, mock, dominate, hiding their insecurity behind loud words and fake confidence. And somewhere along the way you were taught to believe that if you stayed silent, you were weak, that if you didn't react, you were defeated, that if you didn't explain yourself, you didn't matter. But what if I told you that the real weakness was in speaking, that the real defeat was in reacting, that the real power, the kind of power that makes men impossible to ignore, lives not in your words, but in your silence? Nietzsche saw this before most men even had the courage to imagine it. He understood. Those who talk too much expose too much. Those who argue desperately reveal their desperation. Those who fight for approval have already lost the battle within themselves. The world trains you to fight louder. Nietzsche trains you to fight smarter. He teaches that silence is not the absence of action. It's the most lethal action there is. Silence disarms. Silence unsettles. Silence forces every weakness in the room to reveal itself, without you saying a single word. And if you can master this, you won't just win arguments, you will command rooms. You will dominate dynamics without lifting a finger. You will become the man whose very presence demands respect. If you're tired of being the one who explains, defends, pleads, if you're ready to stop leaking your power and start living it, subscribe now. Not to follow me, but to follow the man you were meant to be. Stay with me to the end of this video, because I'm going to show you exactly how silence becomes your sharpest weapon, how to impose your masculine authority without raising your voice, without chasing approval, without even being predictable. Most men will never learn this. They'll keep fighting for scraps. You don't have to. The real game starts in the next few minutes, and once you hear it, you won't see yourself, or them, the same way ever again. How many times have you fought to explain yourself, only to feel emptier when it was over? How many times have you defended your point, only to realize you weren't defending truth? You were defending your own fear of being misunderstood. Every time you react, you abandon yourself, not because you lose the argument, but because you let someone else dictate who you have to become in that moment. When you react, you are no longer free. You are playing a part someone else wrote for you. You are moving to the rhythm of their insecurity, not the command of your own will. This is the trap that swallows most men, not because they are weak, but because they never learned the difference between speaking from power and speaking from fear. They were trained to believe that to be a man is to react quickly, loudly, aggressively, but a man who reacts on command isn't powerful. He's predictable. And the predictable man is always the easiest one to defeat. The louder you defend yourself, the less you are heard. The faster you respond, the easier you are to control. The more you explain, the less you are respected. Reaction is not a response to attack. It's a confession of weakness. It's the silent admission that someone else still controls your center. Most arguments, most betrayals, most humiliations in your life didn't happen because others were stronger. They happened because they knew exactly how to make you move. And when they can make you move, they don't have to destroy you, you'll do it yourself. If you don't learn to master this instinct, you will spend your life trapped inside wars you didn't start, fighting for victories that don't even matter. The next step is to expose the machinery inside you that makes this possible, to tear open the gap between the mind that reacts and the mind that observes and commands. And once you know how to see it, you won't be led into traps you didn't choose. A reactive mind is a slave to every noise around it. It twitches when provoked. It trembles when challenged. It rushes to defend itself even when there's nothing left to defend. A reactive mind doesn't think. It obeys, blindly, instinctively, pathetically. It mistakes every insult as a war that must be fought, every disagreement as a threat that must be neutralized, every slight as a judgment that must be corrected. But every time you react, you are not protecting your strength. You are announcing your weakness. You are telling the world, I need your approval to feel whole. I need your validation to feel real. I need to be understood to exist. And they hear it. Even when you think you're hiding it behind anger or pride, they hear it. They see the boy underneath the man, the boy who was taught that if he stayed silent, he would be forgotten. The boy who was taught that to be heard, he had to fight for attention. The boy who learned that losing the argument meant losing himself. Most men never grow beyond this. They just dress it up in sharper words, louder voices, bigger egos. But underneath it all, the boy still flinches every time someone pulls the string. Reaction is not masculine. It's childhood frozen in the body of an adult. The reactive man is predictable because he carries invisible instructions inside him. Trigger him here. He explodes. Challenge him there. He defends. Ignore him. He chases. Mock him. He bleeds. He thinks he's strong because he's loud. He thinks he's respected because he fights back. He thinks he's winning because he never stays silent. But deep inside, he knows the truth. He knows he's dancing for approval. He knows he's leaking power every time he opens his mouth just to be seen. And when the moment comes that he needs real strength, he will find nothing inside him but noise. Because he never learned to stand still. He never learned to watch without being pulled. He never learned to let the storm rage around him, without moving an inch inside. An observing mind is the opposite. An observing mind feels the pull of anger, but does not obey it. Feels the sting of disrespect, but does not need to react to it. Feels the temptation to defend its worth, but knows it is already beyond judgment. An observing mind is not numb. It's alert, alive, present in every fiber of its being, but unmoved. It listens not to argue, but to gather. It watches not to respond, but to understand. It knows that words spoken in anger are weapons handed to the enemy. It knows that defending against a lie gives the lie its power. It knows that the only battles worth fighting are the ones chosen on your own terms, in your own time. The man with the observing mind is dangerous not because he reacts quickly, but because he reacts when, and only when, he decides to. He is not pushed. He is not pulled. He moves with the weight of a man who could crush the room if he wanted to, but chooses not to. Because true power is the ability to hold still when everything inside you wants to lash out. It's the ability to see everything, feel everything, and still choose yourself above all else. The reactive mind is a puppet. The observing mind is the hand holding the strings. If you live reactive, you will always be someone's pawn. If you master observation, you become the architect of every room you walk into. You become the silent center that others cannot shake, cannot manipulate, cannot predict. And once you taste that level of self-command, you will never want to go back. Next, we step into what Nietzsche saw beyond the herd, the emergence of a man who commands not by force, but by being a force. The ubermensch is not a man who conquers the world. He is the man who conquers the need to react to it. And that changes everything. Most men spend their lives worshipping false gods, approval, comfort, recognition. They live by rules they never questioned, fight battles they never chose, chase dreams they never truly wanted. They are not living. They are surviving inside cages built by hands they will never see. Nietzsche saw this sickness in the human spirit. He called it herd morality, the instinct to submit, to conform, to lower oneself just enough to belong. The herd teaches you to obey, to stay small, to react when told, to seek safety instead of strength. But the ubermensch, the beyond man, does not live among the herd. He does not need their approval. He does not fight for their acceptance. He does not explain himself to their fears. He is not better because he is praised. He is better because he no longer needs to be. The ubermensch is not ruthless by accident. He is ruthless because he had to be. Because breaking free from the herd costs more than most men are willing to pay. It costs the comfort of being understood. It costs the illusion of being liked. It costs the soft approval of living a life that never demands too much of you. The ubermensch is not concerned with being good according to someone else's definition. He is concerned only with being real. Even if real means being feared, hated, misunderstood, he does not react to the herd's accusations. He does not flinch at their judgment. He does not lower his voice when they demand obedience, because he knows that once you accept their morality, you accept their chains. He stands alone, not because he seeks isolation, but because the price of true sovereignty is loneliness most cannot endure. And when he speaks, if he speaks, it is not to defend himself. It is not to be accepted. It is not to reassure anyone. It is to declare reality as he sees it, unshaken by how others will twist or curse his words. Silence is his natural state, because he has no need to explain what he knows to be true. Silence is his sword, because nothing terrifies the herd more than a man who does not ask for permission to exist. He imposes authority not by force, but by presence, by the invisible gravity of a spirit that cannot be moved, bought, or broken. Most men will spend their lives reacting to the world, never realizing the world was designed to keep them reactive. The ubermensch watches the world rage and crumble and betray itself, and remains still. Because power is not taken by those who shout the loudest. It is taken by those who no longer need to shout at all. In the next step, you will see how silence becomes a psychological weapon, how it unsettles, exposes, and dismantles those who mistake noise for strength. And why mastering your silence is not just strategy, it's survival. Words give people something to fight against. Silence gives them nowhere to run. When you speak, you offer targets. When you argue, you reveal your map. When you explain, you hand them the weapons to use against you. But when you stay silent, you turn the fight inward. You force the enemy to wrestle with himself. Silence is not passive. It is active destabilization. Most people rely on the noise of others to avoid hearing their own insecurities. They need the constant chatter, the endless explanations, the frantic defenses. It creates the illusion that everything is under control. When you refuse to engage, you rip that illusion away. You leave them alone with the one enemy they cannot defeat, themselves. The human mind hates a void. It fills the silence with projections. It invents accusations you never made. It imagines threats you never spoke. It reveals fears they have spent a lifetime trying to hide. A simple silence in a conversation can make a liar confess. A single unbroken gaze can make a manipulator unravel. A refusal to defend yourself can make the accuser question his own reality. Because in the absence of your reaction, they are forced to supply the meaning, and that meaning will always reveal more about them than about you. If you have ever stayed silent while someone tried to provoke you, you have seen it. The shifting eyes, the rising tension, the desperate attempts to fill the space you refuse to collapse. They will accuse you of arrogance. They will accuse you of weakness. They will accuse you of hiding something. But the truth is simpler. They are seeing themselves in a mirror they cannot break. Most men never master silence because they cannot endure the discomfort it creates, not just in others, but in themselves. They feel the pressure rise in the room and they cave. They start talking to relieve the tension. They start explaining to ease the discomfort. They start reacting to prove they are still in control. But every word is a retreat. Real authority comes from your ability to let the tension rise without rescuing anyone, not even yourself. Real power is created in that uncomfortable, unbearable space where everyone else is scrambling for air and you are simply breathing. This is not cruelty, this is clarity. You are not responsible for protecting others from their own weakness. You are not responsible for soothing their anxieties. You are not responsible for making yourself smaller so they can feel safe. The psychological impact of your silence is not your burden. It is their exposure. And the man who masters this never needs to announce his power. It announces itself. Next, you will learn how to wield silence not just as presence, but as a weapon, targeted, strategic, deliberate. Because the world does not belong to the loudest man, it belongs to the one who holds his fire, until the world burns itself down first. Words create a fog that people hide inside. Noise protects them. Noise gives them escape routes. Most people don't know who they are without their words. They don't know how to exist without filling the air. They survive by drowning their own fear under the sound of their own voice. But silence strips all of that away. When you fall silent, you force them to confront what they have spent a lifetime avoiding, their own reflection. Silence is not neutral. It is confrontation at the highest level. It demands exposure. It demands truth. It demands that whatever is hiding under the noise be revealed. You see it when you hold silence long enough. You see the restless shifting, the nervous laughter, the forced explanations, the apologies for things you never questioned, the confessions you never asked for. Silence is a pressure most men cannot bear. It twists inside them. It gnaws at their insecurity. It exposes the fractures they tried to cover with confidence, with anger, with bravado. And the more you hold the silence, the more it builds. They will project onto you. They will imagine your judgments. They will accuse you of things you never said. They will beg you to react, to explain, to rescue them from the discomfort they can no longer contain, because they are no longer fighting you. They are fighting the parts of themselves that they can't silence. And nothing terrifies a weak man more than facing himself without a shield. But silence is not just a weapon against others. It is a crucible for yourself. When you hold silence, you will feel your own fears rise, your own insecurities scream, your own need to explain, to justify, to defend. Most men fail here, not because others defeated them, but because they could not survive the confrontation with their own shadows. If you cannot endure your own silence, you cannot command the silence of others. You will flinch. You will break. You will betray your own authority for the fleeting comfort of being understood. But if you can stand still while the fire rises, if you can hold the tension while others unravel, if you can resist the desperate need to be seen, to be liked, to be forgiven, then you will become something most men never even glimpse. You will become the anchor in a world of driftwood, the silence that others fear but cannot escape, the force that exposes weakness without raising a single word. And once you master that, your presence alone will do the work your voice never could. Because true power is not spoken into existence. It is felt. In the silence others cannot survive. Silence is not absence. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not retreat. Silence is the battlefield where power is revealed without a single move being made. When you master silence, you stop fighting on their terms. You stop leaking strength for scraps of validation. You stop playing games that were never worth your energy. Silence becomes a weapon, sharp, patient, lethal, when you learn to wield it with precision. There are 4 weapons you must forge in yourself to command silence as a force no man can challenge. Weapon 1. Resist the need to react. Your first enemy is yourself. The urge to defend, to explain, to correct. It's not strength. It's submission disguised as action. Every time you react, you validate their frame. You agree to the fight they want you to lose. Resist. Even when your blood surges, even when your mind burns with 1,000 things you could say none of them. Win by standing still. Win by refusing to lower yourself to battles beneath you. Because the man who can endure the storm without answering to it is the man the storm learns to fear. Weapon 2. Observe like a hunter. Silence is not passive. It's not disconnection. It's heightened awareness. When you fall silent, you see what noise tries to hide. You watch the shifts in posture. You hear the tremors in the voice. You catch the subtle betrayals of their own insecurity. Most people reveal everything you need to know if you have the discipline to stop filling the space with your own noise. The hunter does not bark. The hunter does not chase every movement. The hunter watches, waits, chooses. Be the hunter. Let them move first, and when they do, know exactly where they stand. Weapon 3. Use time to intensify their discomfort. Silence is pressure, and pressure reveals character. The longer you hold it, the more they feel it. The more they feel it, the more they betray their own mask. Stretch the silence longer than feels natural. Let the weight settle into the room. Let the unease grow until it shakes their voice, cracks their smile, bends their confidence. Most men rush to fill the discomfort. You must train yourself to feed it. The longer you can hold silence while others collapse under it, the clearer it becomes who owns the frame. Weapon 4. Be unpredictable to destabilize. Predictable men are easy to control. Predictable men are easy to defeat. Silence makes you unreadable. Sometimes you answer, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you speak sharply. Sometimes you let the void answer for you. Keep them guessing. Force them to doubt every move they make around you. Because the man who cannot be predicted becomes the man who cannot be prepared for. Unpredictability rooted in silence makes you ungraspable, and what cannot be grasped cannot be chained. These are not techniques, they are transformations. If you're ready to stop reacting, stop bleeding power, stop chasing validation, subscribe now. Not to follow someone else's voice, but to reclaim your own silence and everything it protects, because the next battle is even more dangerous. Not every silence is power. Some silence is surrender in disguise. And if you don't know the difference, you'll end up living a quiet life of defeat, thinking you're strong, while the world moves you without even needing to speak. Not all silence is strength, and not all stillness is power. Sometimes silence is not the absence of reaction, it's the absence of courage. The world praises the man who stays quiet. The world rewards the man who avoids confrontation. The world calls him wise, patient, mature. But deep down he knows the truth. He isn't silent because he's strong. He's silent because he's afraid of being judged, afraid of being disliked, afraid of losing the fragile acceptance he's spent his life chasing. He doesn't endure silence. He hides inside it. He folds himself smaller. He nods when he wants to disagree. He smiles when he wants to confront. He bites his tongue so hard it bleeds, just to avoid standing alone. This is not the silence of the ubermensch. This is the silence of the slave. It is not mastery, it is surrender. A man who silences himself out of fear is not commanding anything. He is erasing himself from the battlefield before the fight even begins. He tells himself he is keeping the peace. But peace bought by self-betrayal is not peace. It is death in slow motion. Every time he holds back his truth to avoid discomfort, he teaches the world how to treat him. Every time he swallows his instincts to avoid rejection, he invites the world to ignore him. And it doesn't stop there. Over time, the man who stays silent to be safe becomes invisible even to himself. He loses the weight of his own presence. He loses the gravity of his own being. He becomes the ghost of a man moving through life unseen, unheard, unfelt. No one respects a man who silences himself out of fear, not even the man himself. He may be liked, he may be tolerated, he may be needed, but he will never be truly respected. Because respect is not something you can beg for. It's something you embody. And it begins with the kind of silence that is not born from fear, but from absolute, immovable self-command. This is the line most men never cross, the difference between silence that builds a kingdom inside you and silence that digs your grave. If you have felt that quiet humiliation, if you have walked away from moments where you knew you abandoned yourself just to stay accepted, then you already know what's at stake, and you know that you cannot stay there. In the next movement, you will confront the chains Nietzsche warned about, the morality of the herd that rewards your submission and punishes your sovereignty. And once you see how deeply the world needs you to stay small, you will understand why true silence is an act of rebellion, not against others, but against the part of you still willing to live on your knees. The world was not built to make you free. It was built to make you manageable. From the moment you could walk, you were taught the rules. Be good, be agreeable, be kind, be peaceful. But good did not mean strong, it meant obedient. Agreeable did not mean wise, it meant silent when it mattered most. You were taught that speaking your truth was selfish, that standing your ground was violence. That demanding respect was arrogance. You were taught to trade your strength for approval, your voice for acceptance, your instincts for permission, and every time you complied, the world rewarded you. Pat on the head, a fake smile, a seat at the table, just far enough from the center to make sure you would never truly matter. Nietzsche saw this before most even dared to whisper it, that morality itself had been corrupted, that the virtues praised by the herd, humility, meekness, forgiveness, were not virtues at all. They were chains forged by the weak to bind the strong, chains designed to protect mediocrity, to punish excellence, to crucify anyone who dared to rise above the crowd. The herd needs you to be tame. The herd needs you to be predictable. The herd needs you to silence yourself, not for peace, but so they don't have to confront their own cowardice. And every time you apologize for your instincts, you tighten the rope around your own neck. Every time you shrink to fit the room, you teach the room it is bigger than you. Every time you explain yourself to those who will never hear you, you offer your sovereignty like an animal kneeling for slaughter. Liberation begins the moment you stop needing to be good in their eyes. It begins the moment you stop needing to be liked, needed, validated. It begins when you realize that you were never made to belong. You were made to become the force that commands, not by begging, but by existing. True silence is not passive submission to the herd. It is active rebellion against it. When you fall silent on your own terms, when you choose not to react, not to explain, not to conform, you are not retreating from life. You are reclaiming it. And in that silence, you are no longer a product of the herd. You become the force the herd fears but cannot control. You stop asking for space, you start taking it. You stop asking to be heard. You start being felt. You stop chasing respect. You start radiating it, not because they gave it to you, but because you took it back without permission. In the next breath, you will see what real command looks like. The silence of the ubermensch, not empty, not fearful, but heavy with unshakable authority. A presence that demands no recognition, but reshapes the room by its very existence. There is a silence that kills a man from the inside out. And there is a silence that turns him into a living force. You already know the difference. You feel it. The silence of fear shrinks you. The silence of power expands you. The silence of submission erases you. The silence of command makes you undeniable. When you embody true silence, you do not shrink in the room. The room shrinks around you. You do not argue for attention. Attention gravitates toward you. You do not demand respect. Respect becomes the only natural response. This is not because you are loud. It is because you are unmovable. You are no longer playing their games. You are no longer explaining your worth. You are no longer asking for permission to take up space. You are simply there, undeniable, unreadable, unshakable. The ubermensch does not lead because he tries to. He leads because there is no other center gravity strong enough to resist him. His silence is not an absence. It is a presence that weighs more than words ever could, a living proof that power belongs not to those who chase recognition, but to those who have transcended the need for it. And now you stand at the threshold of that reality. You can go back to explaining, defending, pleading, back to leaking your power for scraps of approval. Or you can move forward, into the silence that commands, into the sovereignty that no herd can steal, into the manhood that no morality can contain. The world is desperate for noise. Be the silence that makes it tremble. If you're ready to stop performing and start existing as the force you were meant to be, subscribe now to stay loyal to the man you're becoming, and in the comments write, "My silence is my power." Because from this moment forward, you are not here to be understood. You are here to be felt. The man who masters silence masters himself, and the man who masters himself masters everything.